I'd like to call the meeting of the Stanley County Board of Commissioners, our regular meeting for June 3rd, 2013 to order at this time. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. Hope you'll stay for the entire meeting, but if you need to leave after the business you came to see, feel free to do that. Thank the media for being here. We always look forward to them. At this time, I'll ask Commissioner Donovan for invocation.
We recently read that the Apostle Paul told Timothy that the church is to be the pillar of truth. And I think in many respects, many people in our culture, in our country, in our community also expect that of their elected officials as well. So as I pray tonight, I'm going to include that and pray that we can be an example and that we can be a pillar of truth in our community. Let's pray. Father, we first of all seek you because of your love for us and your blessings that you extend to us. You alone can provide the blessings that we enjoy. You alone can give us wisdom to make the decisions that should be made. You alone give us the wherewithal to care for others and to do what's right. Oh, we ask you to give us the wisdom to be that pillar of truth in our community, to do what's best for our citizens, and to always seek the truth in everything that we do. Father, we would be remiss at any time that we come to you not to thank you for all the servants in the world that serve their fellow human beings. The military that helps us to establish our freedom, all the elected officials that serve in communities, and other volunteers as well, appointed boards and so forth that seek to make where they live the best that it can be. So tonight, as we do the business of the county, we pray that you would guide us, that you would lead us, and you would direct us. We make this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. And now, if you will, stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Commissioner Donovan. At this time, before we begin, our other commissioner, Commissioner Shudo, is on his way. I think there's a little emergency with a neighbor and making sure that's taken care of. So he said he's on his way, should be here in a few minutes. So he is excused until he gets here. Adjustments and approval of the agenda. I have a couple of items that I'd like to see pulled. The first one is the appointment to the Community College Board of Trustees, item 6B, if we could pull that. And I think the other, and pardon me for a minute, is item 6C. And the reason behind that is I think that as we make our appointments, we want to make sure that we get the best that we can. And also, you know, we've had some applications, but I think I understand there's going to be some more coming in, and I think that at this time we've got the rest of the month to do that. So if there's no objection, we'll pull those two items. Any other adjustments or comments?
I move we accept the agenda as changed.
Have a motion by Commissioner Dennis to accept. I have a second. Second by Commissioner Morton. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Our first agenda item this evening is a award for retirement. This time I'll ask William Ronnie Stiller if he'll come forward, please. And the commissioners join me down front. Our next agenda item is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2013-14 recommended budget. Presenter will be County Manager Andy Lucas. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is by statute that you must hold your public hearing prior to adopting your budget. So with that, unless there's any questions, you can proceed with the public hearing, and then certainly staff is available for questions afterwards if you need to.
Thank you. At this time, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to come speak to or for or comment on our budget? It's been out there. How long, Mr. Manager?
For 2 weeks, actually, since May 20th. So it's actually probably a little over 2 weeks it's been out there on our website. And there's been a copy here at the Central Administration Office as well as in our public libraries.
Do we need to make a motion and vote on just the receiving of that, or just?
If after you close your public hearing, you can just, I don't think there's a motion that has to be made. There's no action. I just like to remind the public that there will be budget workshops that will be held, and those are certainly open to the public, and that you will announce those tonight. And you may want to take that action now in terms of setting those if you all are ready, or you may just want to do it later at the end of the meeting. But those will be open to the public, and certainly the public is welcome to come and address any concerns they have. I'm sure the board would allow them to speak.
Thank you. Seeing no one to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Ask the commissioners if you'd like to look at the agenda or your calendars and set some dates at this time. Mr. Manager, would you refresh our memory on some of the dates that you had suggested? Might be a good place to start.
Yeah, I believe we wanted to adopt, so we set the adoption for the 20th. So if we use that as the end date and work backwards, I think we had proposed June, or a date at the end of this week as a potential date, as well as June 10th, which is next Monday, or any date that week, or Monday the 17th, which would be the same week as the budget adoption is set for at the 20th. So staff's flexible. If you wanted to keep it Mondays and just do the 10th and 17th, we can do that. If you wanted to start earlier and get a head start on it and begin later this week, that's fine too. Like I say, we're flexible, and it certainly is up to you in terms of 2 meetings, 3 meetings. We think that we can get through the work in 2 meetings, but if you all want to set 3 in addition to budget adoption on the 20th, that'll be fine. You can always postpone one or not, or just not recess until that, to a further date.
I like the idea of the 2 Mondays, and suits me, but that's up to the board. And we always, after the first one, if we see we need another one right away, we can announce another one recess. So. Right.
Yeah, I think if you use the 10th and 17th, like Commissioner Dennis just mentioned, if you do that on the 10th and you feel like, well, gosh, well, I don't think we can get through everything on the 17th, we can always do one later the week of the 10th. And then, staff needs about a business day to prepare the ordinance. And so if we met on the 17th and you felt like you have another meeting, we could still do it the 18th and still be fine with getting the budget ordinance prepared for the 20th.
10th and 17th, what time? 4:35, 4?
Certainly the earlier the better. If we could do 4 and sort of set 4 to 7 aside, I think those 3 hours would be sufficient to get the work done. And that also, and maybe we get done a little earlier, and that would all get you all home in time for dinner. So 4 o'clock works good for staff, but if you all want to push it back to 5 because of schedules or anything, then we certainly are flexible.
Okay, anyone have an objection? 4 o'clock. All right, entertain a motion. All right, I have a motion to meet on 10th and 17th at 4 o'clock for budget sessions. Second by Commissioner Shudo. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no.
do that. I mean, we've set that date as the, to do it, but you could, when you recess the meeting on the 17th, you can say you're gonna recess until the 20th. Really, technically, you only needed to set, at some point tonight, you'll have to recess until the 10th. So that's really the only day you need to do it, but I think that, it sounds like the 10th, 17th, and 20th are dates that are out there for the calendar.
Very good. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is presentation by Malia Miller, Tax Administrator, has some things she'd like to talk to us about. Welcome, Malia.
I have two items on the agenda this evening. First is a resolution. You have it in your packets. It directs the tax administrator not to collect a minimal tax charged on the tax records and receipts when the total original principal amount is $5 or less. That would be county and municipality. It would be the entire tax bill.
All right. Any questions or comments for Malia? I think the important thing that she said is the total tax bill is $5. That doesn't mean if your tax bill is $1,000 and you pay $995, then you don't get the $5 off.
That's correct.
If the total bill is $5. Any questions? Pleasure to the board. All right, have a motion to approve the resolution by Commissioner Shudo and a second by Commissioner Dennis. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item that I have tonight, we just recently had a member of the Board of Equalization and Review resign from the board, and we need a replacement. You have 3 volunteer applications in your packet. This was just late last week, so there hasn't been much time to accept applications. I just asked that you would consider it and consider appointing someone to fill this unexpired term. This term was set to expire December 31st, 2013.
Okay, I think we may have a name. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Jerry D. Allman to serve the unexpired term of office for 12/31/2013.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Jerry Allman to fill out the remainder of this term. To have a second? Have a second by Commissioner Dennis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Thank you, Malia.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is presentation by Ms. Becky Weemhoff on the Home and Community Block Grant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have 2 vacancies on our Home and Community Care Block Grant Board, or the HCCBG. The vacancies are for Sue Massey, who has moved out of the area, and Jackie Beaker, who is unable to serve anymore due to health problems. Both of these board members have been on the board since, I believe, 1996, and maybe even before then. I went back to my records. It looked like that's when the board was formed. So they have served faithfully the citizens and the seniors of Stanley County, and their service has been appreciated. When there's vacancies on the board, we do try to fill them with people who live in the same geographic location as the former board members. And so I have 2 names tonight that I'd like to submit for your approval, and I believe you have their application with you. Replacing Sue Massey, who lived in Albemarle, is Roger Udi. He is retired with 34 years of service to the state of North Carolina. He's active in the community in various civic groups, and he coordinates our Veterans Club at the Senior Center. Replacing Jackie Beaker is Kay Balcom from Locust. Kay is retired from banking, and she remains involved in her family business in Locust. Both of these appointees will bring experience, knowledge, and skill to the board, and we would very much appreciate their service.
Okay, we've heard the proposal. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Dennis to accept the recommendation of Roger Udi and Kay Balcom.
Second.
Have a second by Commissioner Shudo. Any discussion?
only that we thank these two people who have served as original board members. That's a long time.
That is a very long
I'm sure they've done a great job. The two that you mentioned, Jackie
And Sue Massey,
have done a great job. for the
They have
county.
been very strong advocates for seniors in the county. I know some of you know them very well. Yeah.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. And I think you have one more agenda item.
I do. All right, thank you. Our 2-year contract with the caterer for our nutrition program ends on June 30th of this year. Our 2-year contract is currently with Aramark. And so, as we normally do, we go out for bids whenever our contract is expiring. And in order to receive as many competitive bids as possible, 12 different companies were contacted that were inside and outside the county regarding their interest in the program. Those that were contacted, 5 were interested in receiving a bid packet, and 2 bids were received on the day of the bid opening. The bids that were received were for a 1-year bid and an optional 2-year bid. And the 2 companies that submitted bids were Aramark and Punchy's Diner of Concord. Aramark submitted a bid for 1 year of $4.19 per meal, and Punchy's submitted a bid of $4.45 per meal. For a 2-year bid, Aramark submitted a bid of $4.13 per meal, and Punchy submitted a bid for $4.45 a meal. As you know, Aramark uses a county kitchen, and so whenever they submit a bid, their bid price does not reflect the expense of the use of the county equipment in the kitchen, the repair, the maintenance, and the depreciation of the equipment that the county owns. Someone is paying for that expense. And so really we're not comparing apples to apples. If we enter a good estimate of the amount that Aramark, the expense that Aramark, if we look at the expense that the county is having to pay as a result of Aramark using the county kitchen, if we add that price into Aramark's bid to make it more comparable to Punchy's, that amounts to anywhere from 22 to 24 cents a meal. And so when you do that, the 2 bids between the 2 companies are very comparable. We talked with Cabarrus County Nutrition Program, who has had Punchy's Diner as their caterer for the past 4 to 5 years. I think there's a letter of recommendation that was submitted with the bid packet. They're very pleased with Punchy's. We conducted a site visit and did an assessment of their kitchen, and we're very pleased. We contacted the health inspector in Cabarrus County to make sure that, in her professional opinion, the kitchen could handle our meals as well as Cabarrus County meals. And we also received the past 12 months of health inspections from Cabarrus County for Punchy's, as we did for the 12 months for Aramark. We are convinced that Punchy's Diner would provide quality food and service to the seniors in our nutrition program. I was hoping that I would be able to tell you tonight that the USDA reimbursement rate that I mentioned in the agenda packet had actually been approved. We've been hearing words that our USDA reimbursement rate, which is revenue that we receive for all the meals that we serve in our nutrition program, was going up anywhere from 20 to 25 cents a meal, which would mean additional revenue for our program. Nothing was in writing, it was all verbal. We finally found out today from an email that the USDA rate is going up. It is only going up 15 cents, which is a disappointment, but it is going up. But that's still about $9,000 of additional revenue that our nutrition program will be getting.
Anyone have any questions of Becky? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Jail gonna stay with Aramark?
I believe they will. Is that right?
Yes,
Is it gonna-
yes, sir. And our contract with Aramark on the jail has a CPI inflationary formula that's built into it, and so it's not contingent on this. I went back actually and pulled the contract because I had some concerns that there may be an unintended consequence of us going in a different direction on our senior catering, but our hands aren't tied with respect to that. I mean, there's a formula that dictates how the cost of the jail food goes up or down based on by the CPI, but it's not tied specifically to the senior meals. And so I don't believe, based on my review of the contracts, that there is going to be any impact to the jail contract based on a decision with this contract. However, obviously with the CPI in there, the cost of the jail food will likely go up because of inflation associated with food, but that's mutually exclusive to this contract.
Anyone else? It's a pleasure to the board.
I make a motion to approve the contract, award the contract to Punch's Diner in Concord, North Carolina.
Have a motion by Commissioner Morton. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Donovan. Any further discussion? It's a 2-year, right? Is this a 2-year?
I would prefer a 2-year, but it's a pleasure of the board.
2 years.
2 years, okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Next agenda item is a continuation of the proposed Stanley County Animal Control Ordinance. Our presenter is Dennis Joyner, our Health Director. Welcome, Dennis.
Good evening, Commissioners. First of all, I want to thank Conrad for presenting the sort of a summary at the last meeting. I wasn't able to attend when they had the public hearing on the proposed animal control ordinance revisions. Hopefully, he was able to cover the bulk of those questions that y'all may have had at that time, and any other questions that may have arisen since then. I'd be happy to try to address them at this time, but I don't have any other formal comments to make at this point, so I'll open the floor to you.
I just like to say appreciate the patience of the Health Board and going back and looking at some things that citizens seem to be very concerned about, and I think they were addressed for the most part. Assume that the ordinance has not been watered down so much, and I think that you've come up with probably a good piece of work. So personally, I want to thank you for that, and I had a couple concerns, and they were corrected, and I think as well as the other board members. I just want to thank and the committees that Commissioner Ashuto and Commissioner Donovan sat on and helped direct. Any other questions, comments by board members?
I would also like to thank the folks for the additional work. I feel like that the commissioners took the information that was presented by the Board of Health, heard what the public had to say, met to try to resolve issues that some board members initially had, some commissioners had with the initial proposal, and then also met with the stakeholders. So I think everybody has had their opportunity to weigh in and make sure that we encourage the strays to be returned to their owners. I think that was something we heard. We tried to remove any intrusive requirements of the initial proposal. Tried to soften language that would encourage in every way the better humane treatment of animals. And like I said, just heard from those stakeholder groups and made sure that they felt like they were part of the process. And so I agree with what Gene says. I appreciate you guys working with us on that. And then also, in addition, we've heard from the municipalities more recently that they need this and want this. I do have maybe two questions, Dennis, and one is maybe really for the board. If you'll look on page 16, this is something that Peter will recall that in our conversations we talked about. There's a section that starts on 15 that talks about restraint and how a dog is considered to be under restraint. Commissioner Dennis, I think, at the very first public hearing talked about the fact that we have larger landowners owners that like to have their dogs to run free. So under this definition of restraint, I think maybe the Board of Health members especially went back and under number 10 of that definition over on page 16, it says that a dog is restrained if it's on the owner's property that is 1 acre or greater and remains under the control of their owner on that parcel of land. Under these conditions, the dog does not have to be actively restrained as it's described above by means of a fence, tether, or other secure enclosure if control can be maintained and the dog restricted to the owner's property. Commissioner Shudo, if you remember, we talked about this and talked that in subdivisions and in communities, in more developed communities, this means you're making a separation between a landowner with 1 acre and perhaps one with 1.99 acres. So I've actually talked with Dennis today, and we feel like that it would be more fair, and it may even be better for the animal control officers if we would move that up to 3 acres. So that would read now the dog is on the owner's property that is 3 acres or greater and remains under their control. That still allows what we initially asked for in being able to allow a dog owner to allow their pet to move about on their land, but it takes away a burden, I think, from the animal control officers to drive up to a lot inside of a municipality and say, is this an acre or is this 0.99 acres? You know, and because there's a difference in the rule. We really don't have very many subdivision lots that will be 3 acres, and so that really kind of pushes that out and removes that. So that would be one change that I would like to see us make if the rest of you are in agreement with that.
I have.
You want to go ahead and discuss that?
Oh, I have no problem with that because I think that gives the municipalities what they needed. The municipalities needed that active restraint in that, so I think that gives it more flexibility and actually is pretty good. That covers a lot of. That helps the municipalities, so I'm fine with that.
And Mr. Chair, the only other thing is, Dennis, if you'll look at again on page 22 under section 4, and I'm just trying to address the question that maybe Mr. Dennis had last meeting when it talks about keeping stray animals. The language here, and I apologize to you that I didn't catch this before, but the language here may imply that if there is a stray and someone keeps it and cares for it for a while and it's not redeemed by an owner, it says it becomes the property of Stanley County. I didn't know if there was a way to soften that and allow that owner or allow that person who cares for the stray to actually ask for that dog. And let me clarify that for both of you who are here and who may be in a TV audience who can't hear this. It says that when the animal control officer has determined that a person has violated section 2 above, he may issue a written notice of violation to the person in violation. Once animal control takes possession of a stray animal, it shall be placed in the county's animal shelter for redemption by the owner. If the owner is not found or the animal is not redeemed in the amount of kind specified, the animal shall become the property of Stanley County and may be disposed of according to this ordinance. We've changed section 2 a little bit, so it's not now clear, in my opinion, what that first part means when it says when the animal control officer has determined that a person has violated section 2. And so I want to be clear about that. And then also, as Mr. Dennis pointed out earlier, if a person cares for a stray and then it's deemed that they need to turn that over to the animal control officer and the owner is not found, is there a way then that they can go back and claim that dog and make sure? I think we're all saying that that's what we want, but I want to make sure the language in here says that is what we want and we can do that. So you see where I'm talking about? Is it clear to you? It may not be clear to anybody else, but is it clear to you?
Yes, I think it is. The only way I think they would be in violation now under section 2
if they did not.
Well, if they did not,
Give the dog back to animal control.
give
That'd be the only
the
way.
dog back to animal
Okay.
control.
If you're clear that this language allows for a person to care for a stray and be able to keep the stray, if you think that this language says that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to address the very thing Mr. Dennis had question.
If
asked
they
the question
choose,
last
if
meeting.
they choose to do that, they certainly are allowable to do that under this. So the only way I would see a person being in violation would be if an owner was identified and proven, then at that point, we want to reunite the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you, fellow board members.
clear on that.
All right, is that muddy water cleared up?
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I'm clear, I think.
I just want to thank everybody for their work on this, and Commissioner Donovan and all the folks who came involved. This has been really a group effort of the community with everybody. And I would like to make a motion that we add to page 16, 3 acres, change that to 3 acres, and then pass the ordinance as is.
Have a motion to approve the ordinance with the change of 3 acres on page 16. Do I have a second? Motion made by Commissioner Shudo, seconded by Commissioner Dennis. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. And I think we have someone who'd like to make a comment at this time. Mr. Faulkner.
My name is Larry Faulkner. I'm the chairman of the Stanley County Health Board. First of all, I'd like to thank the 4 people that have worked on this thing the most. Ann Yao, which is our veterinarian member to the board. Conrad Carter, which is our engineering member of the board. I don't know how engineering got in there with the dog ordinance, but anyway, he has worked diligently. And also Dean Lambert, and not to mention least, but last but not least is Dennis Joyner, our chairman. We started on this thing a good while back, and got a little frustrating. We knew from the start that we wasn't going to please everybody with anything that's done. I don't think we ever please everybody, but we thought it was good. And I think with your help, Commissioner Donovan and Commissioner Shudo, I think that between the two of y'all have got together with our people and put it together real good. And I appreciate that, and I thank you so much. If you would allow me a little personal note there with Commissioner Donovan. Your father was a minister here in the county, right?
That's correct.
Okay. One time, and I'm not going to mention the fellow's name, but he had car trouble. He took his car to his buddies, which was a member of a church that he was attending to work on it. And he was bending over watching the fellow mechanic on his car, and he said, well, I sure wish I was able to do that. He said, I just don't know anything about cars at all. And the church member reached up to him and said, well, Pastor, he says, one thing is you just don't have the vocabulary to be a mechanic. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Appreciate that. Humor goes a long way with us, I'll tell you. Our next agenda item is committee board appointment. Presenters County Manager Andy Lucas. This is for Central Atlanta Workforce Development Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is for, as you stated, Central Atlanta Workforce Development Board. They are requesting that Sharon Scott, our current Social Services Director, be reappointed, and that our current Economic Development Director, Paul Stratos, fill the Economic Development slot on this board, which with Tom Ramsor retiring from the chamber, he has stepped down from this seat on the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board, so we need someone from the economic development field to fill, and so certainly Paul's a logical choice. So with that, that's the request before you, to reappoint Sharon and to appoint Paul to the Central Iowa Workforce Development Board, each serving a 2-year term that will expire June 30th, 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions? It's a pleasure to the board.
I move we approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dennis to approve. Have a second.
Second.
Commissioner Shudo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Our next agenda item, our last one, is the consent agenda. On that agenda are the minutes from a regular meeting of May 20th, 2013, DSS budget amendment, Agri-Civic Center budget amendment, and the Sheriff's Department budget amendment. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to accept by Commissioner Dennis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Shudo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Thank you once again. We come to the portion of our meeting where we will accept comments from the public. Your chance to come and speak to us about anything on your mind. Seeing none, we will go to general comments from our commissioners. We'll start on Commissioner Shudo's end.
I just want to say, first of all, I apologize for being late, but this is why we have taxes and we pay tax dollars. I only live like 0.8 of a mile from here, and about 12 till I was backing out to come to the meeting, and the neighbors were running to the house up the street, and the elderly lady 3 doors up, she fell off the stairs and was laying there. So I went up there to help, and I was the one that called 911. And, you know, they brought the chair out to help the lady up, and while I'm talking to the lady, the 911 operator, she says, just make sure you don't move her until help gets there. And we were all ready to pick her up, so that's one of those reminders that you do that, and I think it was great taxpayer dollars, and the help arrived, and I got here late. So anyway, I just wanted to say that's a good use for our tax dollars, and people complain about taxes, but by golly, when you need them, they're there. And then secondly, I don't know if y'all said anything earlier, just wanted to give a quick shout out to the West Stanley Colts softball team for winning the 2A state championship, and the South Stanley boys won the 1A state championship. So that's 2 years in a row we've had a softball state champion and a baseball state champion.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Dennis. No comment. Commissioner Morton.
No comment.
Mr. Donovan.
I was going to also congratulate those teams, but I think as we saw the other week that we had some, I think, teams that were shooters from here. It just reminds us there's a lot of things that go on and a lot of success that happens from Stanley County for our students, and we like to acknowledge all that, not just the athletes, but all that takes place, and certainly want to wish people well as they move toward their graduation this weekend. Congratulate all the graduates and wish them a very safe summer and a very safe weekend. I also just wanted to mention that, again, as I've told you before, there is a regional event that's going to take place tomorrow in Charlotte. It's called Reality Check 2050, and the event is going to bring 400 people from 14 counties, 10 in North Carolina and 4 in South Carolina, together to do a planning exercise. If you had the opportunity to determine where roads, infrastructure, housing, and jobs would be located in this 14-county region around Charlotte, where would you put them? Well, we're going to answer that, or at least seek to answer that question tomorrow by taking Lego blocks and stacking them on a map that's broken down by the quadrants, topographic quadrants, and try to come up with a way that we can get this, get some planning juices flowing. So the people that are going to attend tomorrow are Brian Freeman, Brenda Kays, Lee Johnson, Ed Shimpock, Lee Allen, Mike Ryman, Martha Sue Hall, Larry Balcom, Kathy Allman, Andy Lucas, Michael Sandy, Terry Griffin, Preston Gray, and Pam Humphrey. I'd like to thank those 15 people for representing Stanley County and doing it well, and I hope to have a report back as far as what happens and what their impressions are that may even affect how we do our planning even
sir, thank you.
County Attorney?
No comment, thank you.
I have no comments except to remind commissioners there's a couple of inserts in the front of your notebooks about some events that you might want to take into consideration. I'll entertain a motion at this time to recess this meeting until June 10th at 4 p.m. Have a motion by Commissioner Dennis, second by Commissioner Shudo. Anything further? All in favor say aye. Those opposed no, and the ayes have it. Thank you all once again for coming.